Welcome into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell here on your Thursday. We're recording on Tuesday, however, but it is college football tonight. Let's do this thing. We got talked about the matchup last week. We got the backyard brawl on this evening. Looking forward to football season kicking off. Gonna wake up early on Saturday morning, watch some game day.
Your boy, Lee Corso.
Yes, Lee.
Get it on.
Not so fast, my friend.
I'm just so glad that Herb Street isn't leaving. Now he, isn't leaving game day, even though he's on Amazon now. That would have sucked.
Yeah.
Like him and Corso obviously on game day have their thing. And then, the actual announcing piece, he's been doing that with Chris Fowler right now. So
yeah,
is they bringing back him? Okay. Yeah. So him and Chris Fowler have been doing it for a while, and they're an awesome tandem as well. So yeah, that would have sucked to have him dip out, but
yes.
Good news here. And so we're getting the best of both worlds with Dr. Herb Street.
Yes, sir. All right, we have a listener question of the day today. This question comes in from John K. And he wants to know, which rookie wide receiver do you feel will be a bust or a gem this year for fantasy? So I guess we'll just give me one of each. What rookie wide receiver do you like as a bust, and maybe another one as a gem? Who are some guys you're looking at?
I think that, I was thinking of the question as like somebody that could be one or the other. So kind of boom bust.
Well, you can do that, and I could provide
so that's what I'm going to go with.
Sounds good. And we'll get you covered any direction, John.
John K., you're in good hands, buddy.
Yes.
I'm going to go as somebody that could be a boom or a bust or a gem. And that's going to be Chris Olave.
Okay.
I love him as much as we talked about him last week, is probably very, very possibly taking over as that wide receiver one in New Orleans.
North Orleans.
Said N-O, okay. In North Orleans. And I think there's a very, very legitimate possibility of that happening. However, who knows what Michael Thomas is going to look like. I mean, obviously, last time that we saw him on the field, it was a while ago. But when we did see him on the field, he was awesome. And also they're bringing in Jarvis Landry. Jarvis going back to his old stomping grounds in Louisiana. Not that I think Jarvis Landry is going to be a big difference maker, but that does mean he does tend to get a good amount of targets. And that means generally both Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are target monsters, or at least they were 2 years ago when they were both healthy on the field full time. Complete target monsters, and that would leave Olave with just being kind of a deep ball threat. Now, that's what he's amazing at, and that's why I think he could be a gem, because so limited targets potentially, but also he could be a gem because he is awesome down the field. He is, I think, at this point, their most talented receiver. He's got ridiculous hands, sweet speed, great route running. The other reason, though, that there's also boom bust potential here with Olave is, what are we going to get out of Jameis? He's out. Sean Payton is no longer his head coach. It's Dennis Allen. That is how big of, do we want to say as big of a downgrade as possible? I mean, I guess it could have been Matt Patricia, but
well,
yeah.
Or Adam Gase, I would argue.
Adam Gase. So, I mean, there's an obvious downgrade at head coach. If Winston gets back into his old ways, it's going to, are we going to see another 30 pick season? Granted, we did see nice 5,000 yards out of him, but I just think there's boom bust potential with, we don't know what we're getting out of Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and we don't know what we're going to get out of James, and we don't know what we're going to get out of Dennis Allen. But there's definitely gem potential here with Chris Olave, because I think he ends up emerging as the number one target on that team. Him and Kamara just control that, absolutely could control that offense. And So I think Olave could end up being a hit or miss type of a player.
Glad you brought his name up, because going to John Quay's question, and I thought he wanted a bust and a gem. I had Chris Olave written down as a gem. I think he's going to have a fantastic season this year in New Orleans. Michael Thomas has already got hamstring issues, and Jameis Winston's shown in the past that he's able to support 2 wide receivers in a system when he was with Tampa Bay. Granted, again, I've mentioned it before, came with 30 interceptions along with 30 touchdowns, but hey, he's got LASIK now. He should be able to see a little bit
season
better.
in NFL history.
Yes. But no, Chris Olave came on a little bit too in the preseason and showed why he was a first-round draft pick, and I don't see any issues there. I think it's pretty safe. I think they're going to be passing the ball quite a bit. Granted, Alvin Kamara should be playing the whole season, so that's going to take away some targets. I'd probably like Olave even more if I knew Kamara was going to be out for 6+ games once that suspension ends up coming down. But I like Chris Olave this year. I think he's going to be a gem. I think he's going to be one of the better rookie wide receivers to have. And then moving over to my bust, man, I'm kind of pivoting on the fly right now, and I hate saying this. I had Drake London down. I think Drake London's going to disappoint, but I think my bigger bust is going to be somebody that was hyped up. His big counterpart that he was going to be competing with playing time got traded away on draft day in AJ Brown, and I think it's going to end up being Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks has had an absolute dud of a preseason so far during training camp. He's had asthma issues. Some were questioning if he was out of shape, and he just hasn't looked good at all. Tennessee's offense isn't a prolific passing offense. It goes through Derrick Henry. So I think I'm tempering my expectations on Treylon Burks. And if you were drafting him thinking he's going to jump in and replace AJ Brown and be an AJ Brown in your fantasy lineup, I think you need to temper those expectations, and it's going to be more like a year 2 thing for him.
I think I'm right there with you on on Treylon Burks.
Yeah, we were both super high on him a couple months ago, but it's just
he just hasn't, like you said, there's been no not really anything positive out of Titans camp with him. And already the Titans have announced that Nick Westbrook and
Keenan, yeah.
So we can't even pronounce his name. He's gonna be slotted in there as the number 2 wide receiver for the Titans, at least for week 1. So I think I have to agree with you on the Treylon Burks. And again, it's disappointing because I thought he was the best. I thought he was a higher prospect than Drake London coming into this draft, and he could end up still being a better wide receiver than London. I think that Treylon Burks has AJ Brown type of athleticism and could potentially be exactly what AJ Brown is now. But right now, that's not looking like that's going to pan out, at least in year 1, and especially not to start the season. So yeah, if you're looking at him in fantasy, which unfortunately I was, and I drafted him in one of my keeper leagues, I think I'm ready for a disappointment out of Treylon Burks already. So this is great. Yeah. Loving life right now. But I'm right there with you on Burks. Yeah, exactly.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Just type it into the search bar. It should be the first thing that pops up. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell on our YouTube page. That way you know when episodes drop live, usually at the beginning of the week on Monday or Tuesday, depending on the schedule. And then you'll be going live with Critter when we do the NBA episodes as well. So you can get 2 live episodes a week. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell. You want to follow Gel on socials, follow him at DasGel. It's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Send us any questions, comments, concerns you have there, and we will hit you back. And again, if you're live on YouTube, just send a message or a question into the chat. We will answer that on our program. And we guarantee to answer your questions. So unlike a lot of other platforms, you write in and they don't respond back, we will. So make sure you send us any questions that you have, especially if
I didn't know that
on
we
us,
called them programs anymore. I didn't know anything was called a program anymore.
Program, podcast,
YouTube Live.
YouTube Live. But no, subscribe on all of our listening platforms as well too. We'd love if you'd write us a review, screenshot that. We'll even get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. Jill, sipping on anything fun today on the old boosh train?
The old boosh train, unfortunately.
All right. Sounds like you need to get to the liquor store.
I need to figure out something else. God, it's making me feel upset. It's just light beer after light beer.
I know, and we're getting into a great beer drinking season here in the fall.
There's going to be plenty of opportunity to find some Rocktoberfest and all those winter beers too. Gotta love a good old porter, but it's just too damn hot here still.
I am sipping on a beer. It's new to our podcast, and it is one that I had talked about a little bit when I was at Summerfest. Lakefront Brewery's a fantastic brewing company out of Milwaukee. # not a sponsor, but I'd mentioned that during the late evening hours while we were at Summerfest, I found a nice brew from Lakefront Brewery, and I was going through the liquor store the other day and happened to find it, and it is Bumble Bear Honey Brown Ale.
Oh,
give a little shout out to the Bumblebee Bear that they have rocking the label.
That's dope. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So sipping on that this episode.
I like it. I like it a lot. Jealous.
That is you. All right, let's get into it. Had some news that I guess I wasn't really expecting at all pop up yesterday, and that is Jimmy G is staying with the 49ers.
Jimmy GQ.
He restructured his contract. I believe base salary now is $6.5 million, makes him one of the top paid backups in the league, but essentially San Francisco locking him up to remain behind Trey Lance and have a good option in case, I guess, the Lance project doesn't end up working out. I guess my question for you, Jel, is, was this a move that was done because they're a little bit scared on Trey Lance this season, or was it they couldn't find the right trade partner? Maybe that was what they were getting back in the trade package. Or I also think too that the just straight up dropping him and releasing him, they were afraid that he might end up in one of their divisional rivals up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle.
I really think that it's a win-win for both sides. I think, I mean, they made it very clear to Jimmy G, this is Trey Lance's team. Now, do they change their tune if they start out 0-3? Maybe. Maybe they're like, okay, let's start thinking about this. But they made it very clear that, and it's like, it was written in the update that this makes Jimmy G the highest paid backup in the league. And unless Mitch Trubisky ends up losing his job to Pickett.
True.
But it does. I think it's a total win-win for both teams. If Trey Lance goes down, which he did last year, and Jimmy G, assuming he doesn't get hurt sitting on the bench, he has additional incentives for when he does play, or if he does play. So right now you've got that $6.5 million base that's fully guaranteed, but he can make another $9 million in incentives to get up to a total of $16 million. So if he were to reach all those bonuses, those are tied to, I don't have the full list, but I'd assume it's tied to playing time and, a number of starts made, reach metrics, A, B, C. So, and ultimately team success if it's under his watch. So I think it's a win-win. Really, the other thing too is if the Niners would have released him, it's okay. First off, like you said, it's pretty obvious that they weren't getting offered the trade packages for Jimmy that they had hoped. And B, if they had released him, who knows who would have been offering what? I mean, you could have seen some teams out here, Washington, offer him, just say, hey, we'll give you $4 million to come in and back up Wentz. Or Seahawks, hey, we'll give you $8 million to come in and play in our shit ass team. He's got a no trade clause in this deal and a no tag clause after this season. So he cannot be franchise tagged by the Niners, which means if he does get some playing time this year, and he looks good, he's going to have a shot to make another paycheck as a starter after this season. If he would have gone to the Seahawks or some shit team, the Washington football team, Chicago, to sit behind Fields until Fields got canned, which that'd be dumb if they did, but you know what I'm saying. Lions, if Goff doesn't work out, like, instead of sitting on a crappy team and while he may be playing well, they don't win anything, kind of like means that he's probably not going to get a big payday. But if he comes in here, plays somewhat well, he's got a no tag clause, so he's an unrestricted free agent after this season. If he does play, he can make up to $16 million. If he doesn't play, he's still getting 6.5 on a comfortable team, and I really think it's a win-win, even if he doesn't play this season. I mean, he's in a familiar situation. He can focus on working on himself and his health and, improving his own game rather than having to sit behind a crappy Seahawks offensive line and risk getting injured again. So I think it's good for both sides. And if Lance does go down, or if Lance just straight up sucks, the Niners can go back to old reliable, who got him to the Super Bowl and was a dropped interception away of making another Super Bowl this past season.
No, I don't have too much more to add on that. Exactly what you had said, where it's a win-win for him, and he doesn't have anything tied to San Francisco after this season. He'll be a free agent, and he'll be probably one of the highly sought after free agent quarterbacks going into next year. He's somebody that can step in, and if you have really good defense, solid offense, he's a good game manager for you and can maybe take you deep into a playoff run. You've seen that in San Francisco, and 3 years ago now, when took him to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
And was, again, one throw away, that Emmanuel Sanders deep ball, one overthrow away from potentially winning that Super Bowl. So It's like he's been so close a few times. Kyle Shanahan's record is he's got something like a 27% win percentage as a head coach for the Niners when Jimmy G is not starting. And it's somewhere around 60 or above 60% when Jimmy G has started. So there's a huge, Jimmy G's a legit quarterback. Granted, considering who those backups were, Nick Mullins and that former Iowa quarterback, CJ something, I think. In my mind keeps going to CJ Beathard. I kept thinking Stroud, which obviously isn't right.
Ooh.
But big, and the other thing too, this also helps the Niners for next offseason, knowing that he has a no tag, no trade. He's going to be Jimmy G's going to be completely off their books next season. Trey Lance is still going to be on a rookie deal. They already signed Deebo Samuel to his big deal. They signed Fred Warner last season to his big deal, and Nick Bosa's due one. So they can't. They absolutely need Trey Lance to work out so that they can keep him on his rookie deal, so that they can shove all this cash at Nick Bosa that he's going to want. Nick Bosa is going to have a deal that probably surpasses Aaron Donald. So just knowing how these new contracts are structured. So I think it's a win all around. To go back to your original question of, does this mean the Niners have doubts about Trey Lance? I don't think so. I think they think that their team is good enough to win with Lance, and they just have to really kickstart that development phase. So that's where I think, but then they have an awesome backup plan in case Lance is trash. And week 8, week 10, if Lance is just not getting any better, then hey, go back to old reliable to finish off the season, and then go back to Lance next offseason.
Yeah, no, I don't think this has anything to do with their plans of Trey Lance. I think this is just them. Obviously, they wanted to cut cap space. They didn't like the trade package offers that they were getting from anyone, and
they created at least $18 million in cap space with this deal.
Huge. So Jimmy G didn't get released, but had a few notable players that did get released today. Teams had to get down to that 53-man roster today, so had quite a few cuts. Not tons that were noteworthy this year, but some that were. I'll just shout out a couple guys here, Joe, we want to bring up and then let you dive in a little deeper here. But Ian Book, New Orleans, I believe third string quarterback for the former Notre Dame prospect. Alex Leatherwood from Vegas.
Third round pick, Ian Book.
Third round pick, Ian Book, too.
As well.
Alex Leatherwood, former first round pick for the Raiders.
Started every game last year.
Yeah.
And he graded that poorly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Kellen Mond, former Texas A&M quarterback for the Vikings, and Tyler Johnson, wide receiver for the Bucs. So any of these guys surprises, not huge names, but
I was a little bit surprised about Kellen Mond. I mean, the thought was that when they drafted him, it was, okay, he'll take over for Kirk Cousins. And we kind of wondered for a while, like, why aren't they even like thinking about playing him? I like when Cousins was out for his COVID stint, we thought that it was going to be Kellen Mond's first start in the NFL, and instead it was Sean Mannion. So it was kind of like, God, how bad is Mike Zimmer of a head coach? No, it just turns out Kellen Mond's bad quarterback. Yeah. So, yeah, cutting ties with him, but I guess not anything other than that are big surprises. I mean, if anything, to New Orleans, if Jameis goes down, they do have Taysom Hill as a backup option there. So really Ian Book, he's a practice squad kind of a guy at this point for New Orleans. And then I guess the only one, Tyler Johnson, just because he's one of the younger receivers. But if you look at that depth chart, it's Mike Evans, Godwin, Julio Jones, Russell Gage. Tyler Johnson factors in as maybe the number 5, but I believe they still have Scotty Miller. Yeah. So Tyler Johnson maybe falls down to that 6th receiver. So and also when Tampa did have a bunch of receivers down and Tyler Johnson was forced to be, I believe, a number 2 in one of the Thursday night games, or maybe it was one of the COVID games. I don't think he had a reception. So clearly Brady doesn't trust him. Not a shock there. I think he's a sweet talent. I would love if a team like Green Bay picked him up. He showed some nice flashes at University of Minnesota. Shout out to the Gophers, but
boo.
But not too many shockers there. I want to go back to Alex Leatherwood and the Raiders. And this goes back to pre-Vegas. Find the win out of any of these picks. Alex Leatherwood last year, Henry Ruggs in 2020. We know how that turned out. Cleveland Farrell, number 4 overall pick. They passed on Devin White for him. Josh Jacobs just had his 5th-year option declined. Jonathan Abrams had his 5th-year option declined, and Jonathan Abrams actually played some pretty sweet ball, but always injured and was just a box safety. Couldn't cover for shit. Kind of a poor man's version of Jamal Adams, which you don't want Jamal Adams on your team at this point.
There's a poor man's version of Jamal Adams. I thought he was
that's how bad it is. That's how bad it was for Jonathan Abrams. So not great, Bob, but just amazing there. And then also I wanted to jump over to New England. They just cut their 2 tight ends that they drafted in 2020. They drafted 2 tight ends, I think both in the 3rd, or maybe one in the 3rd, one in the 4th. Of their last 13 first, 2nd, and 3rd round picks since 2018, 2 of them have hit. A safety and Damian Harris. So Belichick, probably check your ego, bud. You got to let the scout team figure this, or the scouting team figure this out, and maybe also maybe hire an offensive coordinator. I don't know, Bill. Jesus Christ, this team's a mess at this point. Without Brady, they've got no hope. You don't think
former defensive coordinator Matt Patricia will be a good offensive coordinator?
Oh no! That's true. He does have his pencil, so that he can make notes on his laminated play call sheet. That's true.
It's probably a Denny's menu.
Oh shit, Waffle House again. Another shout out there. No, that's two other moves that came down today. CJ Gardner-Johnson traded from the Saints to the Eagles, New Orleans, and CJ Gardner-Johnson could not come to a contract agreement, so they moved off of him. Eagles get a starting cornerback, so good for the Eagles. I'm confused by CJ Gardner-Johnson's name. His first name is Chauncey. So if you're saying, like, doesn't the J replace Johnson? Like CJ, why would it be CJ Gardner-Johnson? I unless he's
his
got
middle name might be start with a J.
Possibly, I think people called him CJ because it was like Chauncey Johnson, CJ Gardner-Johnson, whatever. Sidetrack there. little tangent action. And then Kenyon Drake also signed with the Ravens. We already know Gus Bus is on the PUP list, so he'll be out the first 4 weeks. There were rumors that Mike Davis might end up having a pretty big role to start the season with Gus Bus out and Dobbins coming off that ACL. So thankfully they found a replacement for Mike Davis, and they're going to give Kenyon Drake some additional playing time. But that's pretty much that's the majority of the NFL news that we've got that came down today on cut day.
So we have some breaking news here, Gel, and that is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is Chauncey Gardner Jr. So I think that's where the J comes from. Junior.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yes.
Breaking news indeed.
Breaking news.
Da-da-ding.
And now you know. All right, Joe, that's enough of cuts. Let's get into a little bit of a preview here. We'll have a bigger preview for you next week, and who knows, might even bring back our stable episode that was very popular from last year. We'll see what we're doing, but little preview for it. We're going to give you some definitive statements here. So Jill and I are going to kind of go back and forth here and either give a bold prediction, bold statement. The other person can tell us how wrong we are, or else maybe propose a question to the other person. So does that kind of explain that right, Jill? And why don't you kick
Nailed it? Nail on the head.
All right. What's your first one? I'll throw it over to you to start.
I'm going to kick it off with a prediction out east.
Ooh, okay.
I think Carson Wentz is going to be replaced by Sam Howell by Thanksgiving. If you look at their schedule, it doesn't look all that intimidating. They start off the season with the Jaguars at home, with the Lions week 2, Philly, Dallas. But I think the Jaguars are going to be a lot better this year. I think the Lions are going to be better this year. I think the Eagles are going to win the East. And I think the Cowboys they're going to be right there in contention to win the East. From there, they followed up with Tennessee, at Chicago, the Packers, the Colts, the Vikings, Eagles on the road. So that takes you through November 14th. That's a pretty rough stretch, especially given that there was some Terry McLaurin issues over in the offseason. He did get his contract finalized, but him and Wentz didn't get any early work together. Their other receiver, Jahan Dotson, while I like him, still a rookie. They don't really have a number 3. I mean, aren't we? I think we should all be over the Curtis Samuel thing by now. I guess Critter isn't, which we learned, but I'm done with Curtis Samuel. Running back room is a mess. We heard over the weekend Brian Robinson was shot in an attempted carjacking. He's in completely stable position. He's out of the hospital. He was back at on the Washington Commanders at their facilities today. He is expected to hopefully make it back by the end of the season, so he's not completely ruled out for the season, but he was looked like he was going to be the lead back for the Commanders, the commies,
the Commandos
this season. So now Boobie Gibson has to jump from, his role in the preseason he was kind of demoted to special teams. Now he has to go back into that lead back role. That may mess with his psyche a little bit. And if we look at Carson Wentz's past, he's been on 3 teams now over the last 18 months. since getting let go by Philly and then getting let go by or traded by Philly and then traded by Indy. So he's on his third team in 3 years. And I think that Washington's just going to start off so poorly that they're going to say, okay, let's bring in the rookie, Sam Howell, who at one point Howell was looked at as a potential number 1 overall pick. And it's going to be Howell's team by Thanksgiving. They have a perfect finale to the season for Sam Howell to come in, and he should succeed these next 4 weeks against the Texans, the Falcons, and then the Giants, a bye week, and then the Giants again. So that's a perfect time after that game on November 14th against the Eagles to bring in a rookie against 3 mediocre teams over a 5-week span and really see if Howell can be the future of that offense.
I kind of like that statement, to be honest. Carson Wentz would have gotten benched last year if the Colts had any sort of quarterback behind him. They had absolutely nothing.
He's lucky Nick Foles wasn't there last year.
Yeah, it would have been the same thing in the Super Bowl year when Carson Wentz went down with an injury, except this time he wouldn't have had an injury. It would have just been Foles taking over, which probably wouldn't have been good anyways, but Carson Wentz was trash last year in Indianapolis. So, no, they drafted Sam Howell. Like you said, going into the last college football season, Sam Howell is thought of as, number 1 overall pick, a bare minimum first-round draft pick, highly touted, and didn't have a great season last year at North Carolina. It was fine, but not the season that people had expected from him. So I could definitely see if Washington's struggling with Wentz as their quarterback to have Sam Howell come in, see if he can kickstart their offense and at least see what you have in him going into next season, because Carson Wentz, he's not a long-term option. You need to figure out what your future is. He's kind of a Band-Aid right now. The NFC East is a fairly weak division. You're going to have the Eagles, going to have the Cowboys, but Giants aren't competing. Washington, more than likely, Chase Young's out for a little bit of time, so they're not going to be probably competing this year for that division, but it's a winnable division if something were to go your way. So, no, I like that a lot. And Carson Wentz, honestly, I'm kind of surprised he's still starting, to be honest.
And yeah, I don't think he's going to make it to our first winter holiday.
All right. My definitive statement here is going to be there's going to be a new king of the NFC North this year, and it's going to be overtaken by Vikings. And I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to knock off the Packers off their throne. Green Bay is going to be in a playoff spot. They're going to be in a playoff spot, but they're not going to win the division. I think Minnesota, their defense is going to be getting better. Their offense is going to take a step forward. They've got weapons all over the field there. I mean, even if Irv Smith stays healthy, he's going to be great as a tight end spot. You got Thielen, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Madison behind Cook, and Kirk Cousins was pretty solid last year. So I don't know. I think the North runs through Minnesota this year.
That was written down as one of mine. So
very nice.
I guess we're on the same page there. I mean, I've talked about Kevin O'Connell in the past where he was able to turn Cooper Kupp from a really, Kupp was always a really nice player and, guy that would definitely be always a fantasy contributor, but not to the level that he contributed last season under Kevin O'Connell as O'Connell's offensive coordinator. I think that there's definitely potential for Justin Jefferson to jump into that Cooper Kupp role, potentially get up to 140, 150 receptions, go off for 1,800, potentially reach that 2,000 yard mark, get himself double-digit touchdowns. He's already doing that right now with Mike Zimmer as his head coach. So with Kevin O'Connell coming in, there you gotta absolutely love that Vikings offense with O'Connell there. In comparison to Mike Zimmer, there was also talks that Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins were constantly butting heads. I was listening to an interview with Kevin O'Connell hosted by Colin Cowherd, and O'Connell, one of the first things that he mentioned with Kirk Cousins and how their how their relationship is coming along, he mentioned that he's putting a shit ton of trust in Kirk Cousins and mentioned that he's basically making Kirk Cousins own this offense. And that's something that Cousins did not have the freedom to do in Minnesota when Mike Zimmer was there. So I'm not saying their defense is going to be any better, but I think that offense is going to take the next jump. Additionally, with the Packers losing all their receivers, losing Zadarius Smith, I think they did replace Zadarius Smith with Wyatt Davis out of Georgia. Not going to be a one year hit, but so I don't have any questions about the Packers defense necessarily, but that offense losing all those receivers and Devontae Adams, who's been the number one guy in the NFL for the last 3 years, probably, as in terms of one of the most important weapons in the league, losing him and not replacing him with a viable number one this year, that's going to hurt Green Bay. But I like the Vikings more than I dislike Green Bay. And week 1, Packers at Vikings, that's going to be the big NFC game of the week on Fox. I think I'm not going to say a shellacking, but I think it's going to be a 1-0 start for Minnesota, an 0-1 start for Green Bay. And just to start off the season, Green Bay is going to start at a deficit.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, look at last year with Green Bay going to what? Would they play last year? The Saints in Jacksonville, and had the huge upset last year where we're like, what the hell happened?
Exactly.
Stuff. But so not always telling that first week of the season, but I think we're going to get a good look at what this new offense
that was
like.
Weird. Jameis threw for like 5 tutties, looked like the old Jameis. And then it went back to old Jameis, but
yes, correct.
Still.
But yeah, so I think, Minnesota will get a good look at what their offense looks like that first game against Green Bay. And Green Bay's defense is going to be good, so we'll see what that offense really looks like with, I think, one of the top 10 defenses in the league going into this year in Green Bay. So should be a good one, but I think Minnesota is going to end up taking home the crown, and I think they're just more of a prolific team this year than the Packers are, which maybe that does a little bit better for Rodgers, does better for the Packers, having a little chip on their shoulder with Minnesota taking the division. So,
well, I'm going to turn this definitive statement and let you make one, and I'll see. I'll have a follow up for you.
All right.
What do you think is more likely here? Denver wins the AFC West, or they finish in last in the AFC West? There's a lot going. There's so many moving pieces in that division, especially on that Denver team, but also with the Raiders, also the Chargers bringing in a bunch of pieces, the Chiefs losing pieces. So what do you think is more likely?
I was going to say, I think you could literally insert any AFC West team into that statement and it could be relevant. I mean, this could be the same thing for the Chiefs. Like you said, there's a lot of turnover there. The Chargers, can they finally get over the hump and make the playoffs? Can Las Vegas jump into the playoff picture here? They've got Devontae Adams coming over. So we'll see. But I think ultimately, I think it's more likely that Denver finishes last in the division as opposed to first. Their offense is going to be good. You want to think Russ is going to click right away, but Denver's had trouble with injuries with their wide receiver corps in particular. Jerry Jeudy was hurt at times last year. Cortland Sutton's 2 years removed now from tearing his ACL. So they have the injury issues there. They want to be a run team too, I think, with Javonte Williams. Granted, I think they're going to let Russ cook more than Seattle did, but I don't know. I think it's more likely they finish in last. I really like the Chargers this year. I think the Chargers are going to take home the AFC West crown. I think they're finally going to get over the hump. I think Justin Herbert is going to end up finishing as the number one quarterback in fantasy this year. I think he's just going to have an absolute monster of a season.
Definitely,
I think they're going to overtake the Chiefs. So I think Denver ultimately finishes probably in that third spot. I don't think they're going to be last. I don't think they're going to be first. So I'm going to have to lean more to more likely to finish last than first, just with where I think they're going to finish in the division.
I'm torn here. So doesn't make great for a definitive statement, I guess.
Like I said, you literally could insert any team into that question, and I would have a tough time answering that because this AFC West is going to be absolutely unbelievable this year.
And the reason that it's a little bit tough for me is just because we saw the last 2 seasons Brady go into Tampa and win the Super Bowl. Stafford leaving his team, going into LA, winning the Super Bowl. Obviously, Russ is looking at that model and saying, let me go into Denver, win the Super Bowl. But I am going to say they're more likely. I'm going to definitively say that they are going to finish last in that division. I think that, the difference between that Tampa team and that LA team, you had very experienced, dynamic offensive coaches in Bruce Arians and in Tampa and Sean McVay in LA. Right now, we don't know if Nathaniel Hackett can hack it. So to steal your line from a while ago, we don't know if he can hack it. So, and also the other thing too, I mean, when Seattle did let Russ cook, what kind of success did they really have? I mean, they had Lockett, they have DK Metcalf. The defense wasn't the same, obviously, but what was Seattle necessarily? I mean, how relevant were they in terms of making a Super Bowl run when it was Russ's time to cook? Russ is a shorter quarterback too. He's not taking a lot of hits in his career, but he's certainly not the same athlete that he was when he was younger. He's now a 5'10", 5'11", maybe, guy that, I guess, let's say 5'11". He's got an inch on Kyler, pocket quarterback at this point. And that doesn't necessarily make for a recipe for success. I think Oakland is better, or Vegas. God, 2 years in, I think Vegas is going to be a really dynamic offensively, obviously adding Devontae Adams, but also moving Hunter Renfrow into more of a natural position for him and taking over kind of that slot role, going back into that slot role that he commanded before, the pre-Ruggs issue. Darren Waller back healthy. They're already talking about a Waller extension for the next at $16 million a year. So he's going to be a happy camper. Josh McDaniels, his second tenure as a head coach, he was able to make Mac Jones look good last year. Now with him gone, and granted he has defensive coordinators as offensive coaches, but reports are that he's looked terrible in camp. I think a lot of that probably had to do with Josh McDaniels putting him into winning situations. And I think Derek Carr's the real deal. So I really like Vegas. And so that's why I don't see Vegas finishing fourth. I certainly can't see LA finishing fourth. If they were to finish fourth with Justin Herbert, and if the Chiefs were to finish fourth with Patrick Mahomes, like I don't know, like the entire NFL is just it's just like the Matrix. Like it's just this vortex of nobody knows what the hell's going on. So I genuinely think that they're going to finish last in this division because I am a Raiders, Chargers, and Chiefs believer over a Broncos believer. I do love that the Broncos are being aggressive here, but I just can't. I can't see Denver. They'll be a good team. Maybe the AFC West gets all 4 teams into the playoffs because there are now 3 wildcard teams, but I see them still finishing last in the division because I am a Vegas fan this year and a Vegas LA Chiefs believer. That's going to be my last one. Why don't I, because you stole my third one. So why don't I send it over to you for your,
all right.
Your last one?
I'll send you my last one here. I'm deciding between 2 here.
Not very definitive.
All right, let's go. Well, they're both definitive. I'm just trying to think which one would be better for content. I think this one will be better for content. Pittsburgh Steelers will make the playoffs this year. I just think their defense is still so good. They have all of the pieces on offense. All it takes is just either kissing titties being just a quarterback that's not turning the ball over, or Kenny Pickett coming in and being a solid rookie quarterback, which we saw in the preseason. I know we don't need to get into that debate, Joe, with Trubisky versus Pickett, but I just think they're going to get enough competency from either Trubisky or Pickett, more than likely Pickett taking over that starting role, but I think he can get them into the playoffs. Pittsburgh was practically there last year with Ben Roethlisberger, who couldn't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. I mean,
true.
They have the offensive pieces. They have the defensive pieces. They've got Steeler Nation there for their home games, waving their shitty towels, the terrible towels. But I think that they could be a sneaky playoff team this year if the quarterback position is right, which I think it will right itself. Mike Tomlin knows how to get the most out of his teams. He hasn't had a losing record, I don't think, since he's taken over the Steelers. So that's on the line this year. I don't know. I think that Pittsburgh could sneak into that last playoff spot.
I mean, I really like the Steelers roster in terms of stars between TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They always have a really awesome interior defensive line, especially offensively, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Chase Claypool, who's been a disappointment since his rookie season, but still a nice weapon. And then Najee Harris, obviously commanding that backfield. My question, though, and this is why I'm going to disagree with that definitive statement, is that offensive line is garbage. And that's Pickett, Trubisky, somewhat. I mean, they're
somewhat mobile. I mean,
they're mobile.
Roethlisberger was okay last year, and he's out there in a wheelchair. You saw him like fall. What was the one gif that he like tripped over himself and just fell to the ground? I mean, like, come on,
life
more
alert.
Capable than that. Yeah, help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
But I think that offensive line is genuinely atrocious, and I think that's ultimately going to be the demise of, because I mean, Trubisky in Chicago, bad offensive line. Kenny Pickett, a rookie behind a bad offensive line. I'm going to have my doubts about that quarterback room. Look at those defenses in their division. Browns, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. Ravens, always ridiculous. Plus adding Kyle Hamilton and some other defensive piece. And then the Bengals, I mean, they didn't have a great pass rush last year, but they did add some defensive pieces.
They get into Kobe Dean?
No, he's in Philly.
No, that's right.
Same state, though. Good call. Got that right. So I'm going to say no. I don't think that they make the playoffs. This may be Tomlin's first year under 500, or maybe they finish 9-8. I also have Miami making the playoffs, so that's why I think you could have
David Ajabo.
Okay, which hopefully he should, hopefully at least by the end of the season, hopefully make it back off that Achilles. But no, I've got Miami making the playoffs, and then you could again make an argument for all four of those AFC West teams making it. I don't think the Steelers have a shot at that division with Cincy and Baltimore being there. So I'm going to say they don't make it. Just I think the AFC is too deep for Pittsburgh to make it.
All right. Well, we will find out who is definitive and who's not later on in the season. All right, Joe, it's time to get to the amateur program and move to the NCAA. Well, I guess technically they're being paid, so technically not amateurs anymore, but sort of professional. But we're going to get into a draft here. Jill and I we love our beer chugs. If you want to see a beer chug, you can see both of us chugging beer last episode. And we love having some fun segments, having some fun bets on the line. So why don't you explain this one, Gel? We're going to do a little Heisman draft here. And we're each going to pick 5, and then whatever their total points are added up for their voting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. At the end, we're going to each pick 5 players. And whatever their total, Heisman points end up being at the end of the season, that's who takes the cake. So I guess, how do we want to do this? Do you want to?
I'll defer. I'll let you have the first pick.
Look at you, what a host!
I'll be a gentleman here. Maybe that'll bring me luck. I need some sort of
you haven't been so hot for the Drew Locks or the PGA picks.
Well,
last year's Drew
majors.
That's true.
When it comes time to important stuff, that's when I buckle up.
Yeah, that's when the shit hits the fan for me. Yeah. But when the rubber meets the road, I guess that's when you when it's your time to shine. Try to fit that cliche in there. All right,
just snake draft style, correct?
We can snake it.
Okay.
We can snake it. I'm not going to take that away from you.
Sounds good. Who's your first overall pick?
I'm going to kick it off with overall favorite right now at a plus 200 is CJ Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State. He'll be my number 1 overall. That Ohio State offense is just too loaded for him to possibly fail. I think the numbers are going to be ridiculous. I think Ohio State probably runs the table at least up until the college football playoff, and CJ Stroud right there at number 1 for me.
All right. That's a good pick. And yeah, he's the favorite. I have to go with the reigning champ here. I mean, he's the next favorite on the list. I doubt they're going to give it back to back. He's going to have just an amazing season here, but I'm going to have to lock in Bryce Young. I think he's going to have an awesome season. Alabama's going to go undefeated. They're going to be playing for the national championship. So that's awesome and going to give him a huge boost. But again, it's tough to win back to back. We haven't seen that done in a long time.
I know Manziel had a chance at it.
Yeah.
But I think there's only a few guys that have won it, or maybe there's only the one guy. Maybe Archie Griffin might be the only.
I think he's the only one that's gone.
And that was back in the 70s.
Correct. So maybe we'll see back-to-back champs. I mean, yeah. Doubtful.
Doesn't mean you're not going to get a bunch of points. So
yes. Nope. Exactly. Next one here. I'm going to jump down the list 1 spot to a guy that could have easily won the Heisman last year and could have been the first defensive Heisman winner in quite some time, but it's Will Anderson. Will Anderson is in contention for the number 1 overall pick next year in the draft. Going to be an absolute monster for that Alabama defense. And I think he's got just as good of a shot here to take that down. They're going to be undefeated, so you're going to have all the recognition there. The only thing is, can he live up to the hype? Everybody's going to be double teaming him. They're going to be going after him. Obviously he's not flying under the radar at all. So we'll see if he can match that. But Will Anderson's going to be an absolute monster and game changer this year.
Yeah. I mean, we saw going back to Ndamukong Suh when he was coming into the season as a potential Heisman favorite or a Heisman contender. And he got that double, potentially triple team from the offensive lineman, plus maybe a tight end or a running back. So, and he still ended up finishing 3rd. So Will Anderson is that type of defensive freak that he could absolutely be right there at the end. I'm going to stick with the same Buckeyes that I went with. CJ Stroud going over to Buckeye number 2, and I'm going to bring it on with Travion Henderson, running back for Ohio State. He's going to I think Bijan Robinson probably has a good shot to be a first-round running back pick next year, but Travion Henderson, I think he's the best back in football, and he's within that Ohio State offense. They're going to put up crazy points. we've seen mediocre Ohio State running backs put up amazing points. And I think Henderson's just the next guy in line to do that same thing for the Buckeyes. Moving on to my third pick. Let's go down to the Southeast over to the University of Miami, the U. Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If Miami has any half of a good season, if they're able to get to 10 wins, it's because he put up a sweet season. And I think voters are going to be sitting there they're going to love that story of Miami making a comeback with finally a star quarterback that university has been without since, let's throw it back to Ken Dorsey in the early 2000s, possibly. So first Miami quarterback to if he can turn around this university, storyline is going to be great. And he may be in line to be a really, really high end first round pick if he can get it done this season.
No, I like that. We talked about him quite a bit last week with just the hype that you have going into Miami. And like you said, if they end up turning it around, win that ACC, there's a very good chance that that's exactly why they did it. But for my third pick, I'm going to go up towards the top. I'm going to pick another game changer here and take Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan's going to just be an absolute monster at Texas. Granted, I think the bigger story there that everybody's going to be looking at is Quinn Ewers, which is rightfully so. Highly touted prospect that was going to go to Ohio State, was there for a year, sat behind CJ Stroud and transferred back to Texas. So that's going to be the bigger story, but Bijan's going to be first round draft pick up this upcoming season, going to be an absolute monster. And quarterbacks, running backs, you have Devonta Smith that won the Heisman, wide receiver, but that was the first wide receiver that had won it in a while. So I'm going to stick with the quarterback and running back here. But fourth, I'm going to go with somebody I thought you were going to pick instead of Tyler Van Dyke. I thought you were going to keep the Buckeye train rolling, Joe, and go with Jackson Smith-Njigba. So I'm going to lock him in. He's going to be the first wide receiver taken in this upcoming draft next year. Probably a top 10 pick, absolute monster. Rose Bowl just came unglued and just brought his name to light. Believe he came really into known relevancy for quite a few people during that Nebraska game. I can't remember if it was Olave or Garrett Wilson that went out, and Njigba
both were out in that bowl game.
Okay.
Both sat.
No, who against Nebraska though? They were at Nebraska, and one of them got hurt, and Smith-Njigba came in and had an absolute monster game, and that's kind of when people were like, "Okay,
this guy's legit.
This guy's good." Yeah, and then all of a sudden the Rose Bowl. Just unbelievable. But
200 some yards, 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I like those, especially like you said, I'm taking guys outside of Bijan. Bijan, just an unbelievable talent, but Bryce, Will Anderson, Jackson Smith, they're going to be probably playing for the national championship, undefeated season at that point.
Never lost.
That doesn't hurt in the Heisman voting.
No, it do not. So we've got 3 Buckeyes here. We've got two, what are they called? Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide.
2 Crimson Tiders.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. All right. Well, let's stay in the Big Ten here, and this is going to be a little hometown favorite. Braylon Allen. Graham Mertz. No, I think Deacon Hill is going to end up taking over for Graham Mertz.
Deacon Hill is legit. I think he's actually be pretty good.
Seriously, Badger fans, go to Deacon Hill's high school highlights. He was only a 3-star recruit, but that dude has a freaking cannon. He can throw with ease. I think he ends up taking over for Mertz before season's end. But Braylon Allen just reminds me a lot of Jonathan Taylor. Who's saying he can't have a 2,000-yard season this year? I see him racking up the yards and getting a ton of votes. May not win it this year, but I see a ton of votes coming his way just because of the numbers that he's going to be putting up. And my final pick, my numero cinco, 5th round pick, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, quarterback out of UCLA.
I thought it was Ukla.
UCLA has a pretty nice schedule that we're looking at here. I mean, tough game against Utah in October, but it's at UCLA. Following week against Oregon, but he's been in Chip Kelly's system now for 5 years. He's been at that the UCLA program for 6 as a redshirt senior. Plus, he got the COVID year, so he's been in that UCLA system for 5 years, or 6 in that UCLA program 6 years. Chip Kelly for 5 years. Chip Kelly's longest starter, by the way, Mariota, only a 3-year starter. All of his previous quarterbacks were not, they weren't in his system for as long as Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been. So I think he's got a chance to put up some numbers. And again, I go back to what I said about Miami. People are starving for some of these star, high profile kind of glamour programs to make a run. And Thompson-Robinson, again, he put up some halfway decent numbers last year. And if UCLA is any good, he's familiar with the system, and I think he'll be right there. So dynamic player. I've got him as my number 5, my 5th round pick.
Nice. Oh, that's a good one. Under the radar. I'm going to give you somebody else that's a little under the radar. This guy last year threw for 4,700 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And what better way to put up some Heisman stats than being in Mike Leach's air raid offense down in Mississippi State, Mr. Will Rogers. So it's a long shot, but if anybody can do it, it's him. You're playing in the SEC. You get the recognition there, being in one of the best conference in the country. You're going to be playing Alabama. You're going to be playing LSU. You're going to be playing Texas A&M. So if you have some big games against them, maybe pull off an upset, you're going to get your name out there as well. So I think Will Rogers could be somebody that maybe makes a little noise this year too.
Do you have any love here for 3 former USC quarterbacks that have all transferred out and all have the same odds to win the Heisman at plus 5,000 in Keaton Slovis, JT Daniels, and Jackson Dart? Slovis now at Pitt, JT Daniels now at West Virginia, Jackson Dart at
Ole Miss. No.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
No, none of those programs are going to be competing for New Year's Six Bowl. I don't think. Maybe Ole Miss. I don't think Pitt's going to be able to do it with their offense this year with Jordan Addison leaving. So I would say if I had to put money on who I thought maybe would have the best season of them, I think it's going to be Jackson Dart. We saw Matt Carolina have a fantastic year last year with Lane Kiffin there at Ole Miss, but no, I'm not excited about the 3 of them.
Okay, good call. Wanted to make sure.
Yep. All right.
Happy with our teams.
Debuting our last new segment this college football season, starting week 1, we are going to give you our upset pick of the week. So no restrictions on this. You can pick the same team all season if you want to. You can go ahead and pick the same one as your opponent for the week. We're not telling each other prior to this. And the only rules are, if your team that you picked the upset wins, you get a certain amount of points. If they are and it's got to be a team that is at least a touchdown underdog. So if you are in the 7 to 14 point range, you get a point. 14 to 21 point range, you get 2 points, or 21 point or higher, you get 3 points. So we're going to keep a running total all season on this. Should be fun. And
hopefully we can get a few of these right.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to go 34 or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll be picking a 21 point favorite at all, but we'll go ahead and do that. So Joe, why don't you go ahead and kick her off?
Well, you said we won't be doing a 21 point favorite. I'm going to kick it off going red hot.
All right.
38-point dog, UL Monroe over the University of Texas. Longhorns going down week 1.
Oh,
I am not.
Wow.
I am at this point. Quinn Ewers has not shown. Its reports are that he has been disappointing. Steve Sarkisian has not been a good head coach. UL Monroe's going to come in hot, and they're going to be ready to take over they're going to be ready to take them down in Austin, Texas. So let's go UL Monroe, 38-point dog. Ow!
Damn. All right. I like it. I like the bold play right off the bat here.
Give me this hot start. Let's go.
All right. I'm going for something a little more tamed here in the 1 point range. And this team is a 7.5 point underdog, and Country Roads are taking me home. West Virginia over Pitt opening day on Thursday. I think JT Daniels is going to show that he should have or was a good quarterback. It wasn't something, it was a Stetson Bennett show, but I think he's going to end up being fine for West Virginia. I think Pitt's going to struggle, especially without Jordan Addison there. We've mentioned that a couple times, but I think West Virginia is going to end up pulling off the road upset here in the backyard brawl in Steel City and come back to West Virginia with the W.
Mountain Mama.
Take me home. All right.
JT Daniels.
Those are our locked and loaded upsets of the week. So you can take it to the bank.
Please don't.
Just tweet at Gel if they're wrong. All right. That'll do it for this episode. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. Click the bell so that we know when episodes drop live. Joe can be found at DOS Gel. I can be found at DOS JPEG. Send us any questions, comments, concerns there. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Screenshot our review or your review of our podcast on our listening platforms. We'll get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. What are some of those listening platforms, Joe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your chosen listening platform is. Take a screenshot of that written review, send it to us on our social platform on Instagram or on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Make sure to also follow us there, and we provide some links on a daily basis every time that an episode is released. So it's perfect reason to follow us on our socials for that reason only. Also, you can find us on YouTube. Just search Dead Arm Sports. Our channel should be the first thing that pops up at the top of your YouTube search bar. And make sure to subscribe there and also hit that alert bell. And we will love you forever.
Happy college football season, everyone. Hopefully your team wins this weekend, unless you are an Illinois State alum playing our Badgers. I hope you lose. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great weekend. We are 1 week away from the NFL season. Take that in and have a safe weekend. Shall close her out.
Upset City. Let's go Warhawks.